Bonjour et bienvenue à 40K Frontiers. Avec moi, c'est Sam Lemon et Henri. Bonjour Henri, ça va?
Ça va, ça va. Ton accent est pas ouf. Your accent's not that great, but you're doing fine.
Yeah, that's fair. It's been a while and I was being lazy. So yeah, hey everyone, Sam, do you want to do the actual intro?
No, hello everyone. Welcome to 40K Frontiers Showcase. With us today, as you may have picked up on the intro, speaking to the French. So, when with us today, got the beautiful, the sexiest man I've known in France, Henri. How you doing, buddy?
Very good. Early in the morning, late for you, but very good.
Happy days, happy days. So, he's here with us today to talk about French 40K and what the whole scene's about. Obviously, you may have heard some rumors and accusations of like what's going on, what's happening all in France, all these random things of this French league and French championships, and like the one person picks the reigning 8 players. But we're going to find out all the dirty details and actually what goes on behind the scenes. So,
we'll find out
Henri, so
how they let. We'll find out how they let salamanders win and how like some guy from France goes over to win the LGT and people haven't heard of him.
Yeah, in France we didn't know him that well either. So
yeah.
Very secret, very secret. But with us today, so Henri, so introduce yourself. So how long have you been playing 40K for, and like what do you generally play?
So I'm a very recent new player of 40K. To be honest, I started playing last December. I think I bought my first mini on the 3 of December. By the 20, I had 2,000 points of Necron. By the 5 of January, I had played 5 or 6 games in 2,000 points. And yeah, it's oh, wait a second, sorry.
Some webcam requires for those listening in.
Hopla.
But yeah. Yeah, well that's pretty quick. And yeah, so I met Henri playing him in the Stat Check Vibe Check League, and he's definitely pretty onto it player despite being a bit on the newer side.
Yeah, and then so we met playing on the Vibe Check. You were playing RK. I was playing GSC, which is my new faction. I've been I think I have over 70 games now on GSC.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been playing it a lot, lots of reps on it, and having a good time.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very
so,
good.
Oh, you go, Sam.
You go, Towse.
So have you had anything in between? So you speed ran your way through getting a Necron's army, and now you're off to repair your phone again. And
I'm so sorry about that.
That's fine. So yeah, you anything in between your Necrons and GSC?
No, basically what happened is I was playing. It's what we're going to talk about today. Is French meta is a lot about team. So I joined a team. So for our league, it's 6-player team, and I was decently doing with GSC, and they asked me, of course, to switch to Knights because it was the flavor of the month. It was in June, and after seeing me play GSC, they allowed me to continue with them. So that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months, and playing mostly variation around that Eric Latour's list from WTC, so 30 bags and as much Neo as you can fit. And I, however, play with 2 detachments, so 2 banners and 2 Nexus.
Yep, it's they're really good at hiding up on the top floor of a building.
Yeah, especially if you cannot melee them over there, which RK can't.
But yeah, no. So it's definitely a cool list. I enjoyed like playing against it for the first time. It was real fun to have that happen on conversion, where your warlord is needed and your warlord is targetable. That was a good run in our game. But no, you said during that you're also focusing on reffing. Is that right?
Yes. So what you have, the French scene is built around the FEC, which is basically the federation. It actually means French European qualifier. For some reason, it used to be for the ETC, I guess. And the FEC organizes most of our tournament, not all, but a big league, which on a team league called the League War, which has 1,000 player, 80 teams, spent over I don't know how many match, but maybe 60 or 70 events, and for that to all work out, they need many referees. So we have 60 referees, and what's nice is they actually have a budget to train us. So as a new player, I was so I live in Paris, but if I didn't, I could have my train paid to do a training seminar with a senior head refs, working on a practical case like obscuring and charge, and big building and charge, and line of sight and dense terrain, that kind of things. And that way we have lots of referee in France, and we're able to send them pretty much anywhere they're needed. So yeah,
that's really cool.
That's fair.
And so when you say send them anywhere they're needed, do you mean anywhere within France, or do you sort of like loan out French mercenary referees to neighboring countries?
It didn't happen yet, and I think the emphasis is on yet. Because I think you heard there is a big event coming up in August or maybe in July in Belgium. And it's possible some French referee are sent over there. So
yeah.
I think what Henri is alluding to might be the WTC, maybe. The small event.
Yeah.
So from the sounds of it, Henri, so you guys focus on the World Team Championships in terms of a rule set and FAQs. Is that what you're training like?
Oh yes, we are in constant communication with the referee with orgs from WTC. They're actually Tom speaks French, and he's actually on our Discord, spreading his wisdom once in a while with a one-sentence answer, which we don't always understand, including head refs. And I'm kidding. We understand them, but we don't have any sources, so sometimes it's a bit hard to convince our player for them. And and it's working really well that way because we only play WTC. So
So always 20-0 system, is that right?
Always 20-0 systems. There is a little quirk, however, is that when we play singles events, the victory is at 12. 11 is a draw.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So for people who aren't aware of the WTC system, obviously it's split by 5. So what Henri's you meant? No, you're fine, Henri. Like obviously we have US listeners which don't use the audio system sometimes, so good to know for people. So what he means by that, so sometimes with a differential, you have like so 10-10 is like within 5 points discrepancy, and 11-9 is 6 to 10 points. So what Henri is saying then 12, you need 12 or more, which means more than 11 battle points differential. So like 80 to 69 would be a win, but like 80 to 70 would be considered basically a draw equivalent. So very interesting. That's wow, that's big. How have you guys found that? Is that been like a new implementation or something that's been around since you started in December?
So it's been new. It started around WTC in July. I have to say, when I first heard about it, I was not understanding it. I didn't like it at all, especially playing GSC, where you have to. Sometimes you see through the prism of your army, so where you do always very small wins. And I have to say, I really love it because it's closer to team. It means that you cannot just do a small, very safe win of 1 or 2 points, or 11 points is an actual win. So it makes for a lot more interesting games. And as much as it's pained me to say it, it was a very good decision, I think. So
just to clarify, that was 11 like battle points. So like if you paint your army, that's 10 of your 11 points, or that sort of deal, like that out of 100 scale, not the WTC 20-0, because both of them use points, which is really helpful for discussing.
So you can say victory points and WTC points, VPs or
true.
That's a good differential there. So with that seminar and training system, like what is it? Is it like everyone comes to a conference and they meet for like 1 or 2 days and go through all these training, or is it all online, or how's like this referee training course done?
So the first thing you do is you contact the federation, so the FAC, and you ask for them to interview in order to become a referee. I thought it was going to last, I don't know, like usual interview, 30 minutes or 40 minutes would be like a quick and easy thing, and then we would meet up. It lasted 3.5 hours. It was lunchtime.
Like so you tried to schedule it during your lunch?
Not really. It was during summer, but I had family and friends that came over for lunch, and I was like, I have this small meeting at 11, but don't worry, guys, I'm with you in like an hour. No. I was there at 2:00. It includes lots of questions, lots of briefing about how you're supposed to behave, intentions, I mean, the usual stuff. But on top of that, you have like practical studies. Like imagine a player is doing that and another player is saying that. How are you going to react to that situation?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's like, for example, a player tells you that a dice was thrown out of he couldn't see a dice. It's a very important die. They're both arguing about it. What are you going to do? How do you rule that? And the answer is obvious. Like, you tell them to roll in proper places and that they can both see the die, and you make them re-roll the dice because there are you don't know. But I think it's really gives a mood, and it gives a mood of what the facts the Federation is trying to achieve. So yeah, it's peaceful refereeing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. Is there like certain lessons and stuff over time, which like part of these interviews and stuff like that are part of the teachings, or do you meet in person and go through these demonstrations as well?
The way it works is basically you have a Padawan status, junior status. That's where I'm at the moment. So to understand, we have 55 referees. I think out of the 55 referees, over 40 are Padawans, are juniors. So mostly juniors. And you get taken onto events. For example, I went to Strasbourg to do an event as a Padawan, referring a League 2 event, which was a pretty big event. We can talk about this afterward. And that's how they train you. And once a year, you have a seminar that's based around very specific subjects that actual like even top tier ref fail. Like, for example, the thing we had with Alex about if there is a model that's actually not in your line of sight, but not in a dense cover, it's a bit complex. You don't have the -1 to it. Like if someone is behind and obscuring and you don't see him, yet you're shooting at the unit and the only models you see are in a dense cover, you will not have the -1 to hit. And that's the kind of specific subject we study as referee in order for everything to be as smooth as possible.
Yeah. If you don't understand that, guys, trust me, Henri did explain it well. It just was referring to a specific game of TTS, so difficult. But yeah, no, that's cool. It's cool to see like the interesting weird quirks. And I suppose, does that mean as well that generally across your whole nation, you'll generally get pretty consistent rulings?
So across our whole nation, first of all, there is a little thing specific. There is 40K is played outside of FEC purview, Federation purview. There is, for example, a UKTC tournament, the first UKTC tournament that's going to take place in Paris, around Paris anyway. And they do not go by the Federation, and they exist, and they're a nice event, which I will probably go to as well. But I would say 95% of the events are made by the Federation. And we have a whole Discord where everything is centralized. All the rule questions are centralized. There cannot be a wrong answer. We also have a FAQ that's our own that usually adds questions from WTC that WTC answered but not officially. For example, currently you cannot take Brood Brother secondaries because of the wording of Nephilim. However, Nephilim specifically says that some GSC secondaries can be used with Brood Brothers. So the FEC, our federation, the French Federation, will rule that it's possible. So our ruling are extremely constant, and we also have like WhatsApp, and if any ref has a doubt, he can WhatsApp all of the 55 refs in a go, and we usually answer really quickly. So yeah, extremely constant.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That sounds amazing. Do you know if this has been something that's been on for years and years and years, or has this been like a recent iteration?
No, it's been going on for, so I cannot tell you how long. I think at least 6 or 7 years. It's been going on for a long time. There was a change of, let's say, leadership that took place around 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I take those numbers with
a time ago.
Yeah, some
few years ago.
A few years ago, and that's so that was that's a change that operated, but I think it's been going on the same way, with the whole point still being players having a good time and getting the French captain for the WTC.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that sounds like a great way to segue. Do you want to talk about how France does its WT selection process, because that's like a big part of the structure of your like of the tournament scene, right? And also seems a bit odd to outsiders at times, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Basically, the way it works is in France, we have a lot of single tournament, but there is a definite focus on team tournament. And what's interesting is, although we're going to talk about selecting the French captain for WTC, so top player, the actual focus of time and energy goes into brand new or lower skill player getting to experience a team event, because you're going to have, I think there is 106 teams or of 8 or 6 players in France. And they are all split into different pods of different leagues. So basically, you have the first league, Premier League, which is only the best players, only the best team, only 6 teams. So that's a picture. This is a French League One team, and they're spread all around France. Then you have the League Two players. They're split it into 4 different pods according to regional, to where they're based in France. So you have northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and then you have, like, I don't know, 20 pods of League 3, and they're based all. So you will have 3 pods for Paris, 2 pods for the north of France, 3 pods for the east, and they will all face up. And basically, what's going to happen is just like in soccer. You say soccer? In football?
Yeah, soccer or football.
Yeah, football. The top 2 teams of each pod will go down, will go up, and the bottom 2 teams will go down. So the picture we're seeing right now is for example the League 3 of Bordeaux, I think. And so League 3 is going to be 6 players. Teams of 6 players, so 6 teams of 6 players that are going to face up in 5 rounds over 2 days. And there's going to be one match around December and the other in April. So 2 matches are going to make it, so 10 games in total will make it possible to know which is a better team that will be eligible to graduate to second division, to League 2. And so what's funny is that you're going to see some League 3 team, which are supposed to be relatively poor skill, but are trying really, really hard to get into League 2. And are going to play, like, for example, my team, we are in League 3, and we play, most of the players play 3, 4, 5 games a week. We do meta watch. We watch teams all over the world: Poland, England, Scotland, Australia. We follow the meta everywhere, and we're still a League 3 team. So imagine how League 2 and League 1 team goes. And about the selection process, it's for the captain of WTC, it's pretty simple. Once those 2 matches have been done for the League 1 pod, they will both, the 4 best team will face off on the last event. Will be a 2-day 3-round event, so a very chill event. The idea is it has to be the most chilled. You have to, of course, there is a clock. Of course, there is a 3-hour clock, but the refs are super chill on that, and they are the best. We want players to have the best time, and the teams that will win the event, their captain will become the captain of the French selection. And that's the thing that changed recently. He used to take his whole team to WTC. That's not the case anymore. He will pick up on any player he wants from any team, from any league. So it happens that sometimes you have a League 2 player that's not even in Premier League that will make part of the selection for WTC.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So, and there's a recent change you said. So now it's like any players from any of the teams. So, is that a change as of this year?
It was a change of last year. Last year it was already the case because LOL, which was our selectioner, our captain, decided to take. Basically, before that, it was always the same team that won. The same team has always won, and they would always go with their team. And even though they would have won again this year, I'm pretty sure I would have split the team because we realized that it was not the most effective. They were very good player in other team, so it was stupid to not actually benefit from their experience, their skill, and their input.
And it's like it can be really difficult, right? Because if you've got this like powerhouse team, and you either need to try and absorb the best players you can and sort of improve that one team, and then just go bowling ball through the national scene, or go to like the system you've got now, right? Where where it seems weird that the captain can choose from everywhere, but that way they get to see, the best.
I mean, I think that's pretty much how you do it in Australia, as far as I know. I think most country does it that way. Just we needed, because French are complicated, we needed an official way to select, and that's an easygoing way to say we are complicated. We needed an official way to select our captain, and not to be any discussion about it.
Yeah. So of course you have a 3-tiered league system that requires at minimum 3 years for them to. Because I assume it'd be like it's once a year that you move up and down divisions. Is that right? So if you want to be captain of Team France, you need to have been involved in the system for minimum 3 years. One in Division 3, then you get up to Division 2, and then another one to get into the Premier Division and win. Is that right?
Totally. However, that's if you want to be captain.
Of
you
course.
Don't imagine a captain with less than 3 years experience on the game. But to be a player, I think it's the other way around. Is because we have such numerous players, so many teams, It's really easy to be noticed now in our system because if, for example, there is a Necron player at the moment that's performing really well. He's in League 2. Well, he was invited to the Big 4, so that's playoffs for a League 1 event, and he did a fantastic. I think he did 20-0, 10, and 20. So he got noticed, he got selected, and he proved himself. So there is definitely room to grow up.
I guess because you have all the games, right, and you'll notice like, oh, this team has like someone any player that's just bodying everyone they play against, right? And then that'll sort of spread around the community discussion, I assume.
Definitely. However, if it happened in League 3, it will be definitely hard to notice. But once it happened in League 2, you notice a lot.
Yeah, sure. And so, like, during any one season or league, so how many games are you expected to play? So is it 6? And, so your team, how many other teams are you expected to play within your pods, roughly?
So it depends, but we're going to say, so in your pods, there will be 6 teams. So there is, how do you say it in English? Away and abroad match, like in football?
Home and away. Home and away. Yep.
Home and away. So 5 games for your home match and 5 games for your away match.
Okay. So you play every team twice?
Yes. But there is a 3-month difference. The whole idea is to have a meta shift difference between the home and away.
Yeah, sure. And so I had a quick read through the actual rules pack before, got it quickly Google translated and understood it. So it sounds like you try and organize one weekend so everyone can come together and organize things and book venue halls and stuff that makes sense. And it's funny for anyone interested, like the French Tournois 40K. That was terrible French, but they have like the rules pack and map pack there, and they explain it. It's obviously like any French. They explain it's like if you only have a venue hall of this size, this is how you can do it for these amount of teams. If you have a venue hall this size, is how you can do it. It's very organized and very structured. It's very impressive. So kudos to Beck and everyone else who's involved. It's amazing. And I was going to say, so, and also as part of it, you have mercenaries potentially. So someone, if in case, worst case scenario, someone needs to fill in, you can have someone step in from another team, or it sounds like not internationally per se. If required.
Mercenaries are a very complicated subject because the policy now of the FEC is that they don't want mercenaries.
Right.
So the only way a mercenary is allowed is if you submitted a list with a player and the player is unavailable. But a mercenary cannot come with his own lists.
Right.
They want the teams to be like Formula 1 team or football team, like to really foster a team culture, because they want a captain to lead them, and the whole selecting process is also for a captain. So
Sure. And also understand
Yeah.
this isn't like obviously this is the French team champs, and at League One you can only have French teams, but for League Two and League Three it says they encourage other international teams to join if they are willing and able to. But big caveat is you have to speak French. So
Yes.
for other European,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's been
Yeah.
well, it's still been Belgium, Swiss, Luxembourg. That's
Absolutely.
about it.
Yeah, and then yeah, you can agree to speak English, but I imagine like French being French, like if you can speak French, why not speak French?
Oh no, but yeah, it's don't expose yourself to that. It's going to be
Yeah,
complicated.
too funny, too funny.
Yeah.
Just curiosity. So obviously with the judge rulings and stuff like that, we always hear about how there's always the French copies of codexes and the English copies of codices. And I know I think it was early with Nuckman. There was a massive translation error with the pages from French, from English to French or French to English. How has that sort of worked out in your own community? Do you guys try and use the English codices like the WTC rule on, or?
Yeah, we don't buy French codex.
Interesting. Wow.
Right.
So you have to try English and just go with it?
I mean, of course, some players will buy the French one because for many reasons, but no, all the rulings, also the wording, because when you do ruling, it's about a small comma can change everything. And so,
Yeah.
And about Nachmun, as you said, interesting fact from Games Workshop, they actually refunded all the French Nachmund booklets.
Huh.
Because everything was wrong in them. So
yeah, I know like they released like a digital PDF of like basically the whole book is like refund. It was complete like mismatch. So that's funny. Like you just have to buy English because as you said, like I've heard multiple editions, like in previous editions and stuff like that, there was translation issues and stuff like that, and then WTC are like just English only, just to be simple and make sense. So no, that clears a lot of things. So yeah, interesting. How what's the travel time like between various leagues? Obviously, you talked about the northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. Like, how far are people traveling for these events? Or like, for yourself, obviously, you're based in Paris. How far are you traveling for some of these leagues?
I mean, if you're doing a league 3, the idea is you have less than an hour and a half. Usually, I mean, there are exceptions, but for us, it's going to be 30 minutes for the home match and an hour and a half the away match. If you're doing League 2, so I refed League 2 recently, and I came with some team from Paris, sorry, and it was 4 hours and a half driving, which for you Aussies is okay. For us French is insane. It's way too much.
Yeah, it's like you see the jokes of people in Europe versus people in somewhere like Texas. Oh, there's a concert 3 hours away. That's so close. And then you get someone in the UK, in the EU going, oh, a concert 3 hours away? I don't want to drive to France or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like you could drive to another country in that time. Why are you?
You can drive through 4 different countries in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like literally.
It's funny.
So,
you mentioned that it was a WTC Squadcast, which Ishik did with Luxembourg, and it was funny. The biggest issue they have in Luxembourg is travel because all the Luxembourg players are like, "Oof, it's more than 30 minutes away." I mean, I'm okay. It's like that's too far. It's hilarious, and they said like it's a massive issue in the country because just people are just like more than 30 minutes. Like that's a different country. I can't do that. So that's hysterical. But yeah.
But that's funny. An interesting question. That's why we have this whole system of pods. To reduce travel time, and that's why it's so complicated.
It sounds really complicated, but it actually just seems like a remarkably cool idea. Like it's like I'm impressed that someone managed to convince everyone to get on board. It's like, right, guys, hear me out. All right, we're gonna to select our national team. We're gonna have a 3-year process where you need to build your way up through these tiered leagues to be kept. Like, how did they? I'm impressed they've got it going, but it's really cool.
Well, they expanded upon it, basically. It started with just one league, and then they added second, they added a fifth. Soon there would be a fourth. No, I hope not. But it's
that's
simple.
Very logical, but not as funny, okay?
Yeah, it's very simple on the user end of the product, but on the organizing end, it's... I mean, I'm not part of the... I'm just doing the refereeing, organizing, but imagine finding 50 venues, dealing with ego sometimes, or problem or availabilities for 50 different events, with sometimes some big like some people are playing a lot at stake on these events. Like if you train a lot, like for example, for us, we've been training pretty hard, and we would be very disappointed, for example, if the layout changes last minute because the venue we're going to doesn't have the good layout, which could happen. So yeah, it's
Versus so much time
mean,
and money.
I can relate a little bit of I think there's WTC dates not fully locked in yet, which when like I'm looking to book flights pretty soon that's a little bit frustrating, but you can't really do anything.
If I can make you feel better, I think the French hotel room are booked for the next 3 years. So
But that's
a French way of doing business. So
that is ridiculous.
Just make sure.
Oh dear. Okay then.
Yeah. So with your community, so obviously yourself, Henri, you joined during 9th edition. Do you know if the larger French community has also seen like a large surge of new players and new blood in the scene, or?
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah, really.
It's crazy. I mean, we have. I don't have the number, but I think there was a bit in 12 years in the space of one league. I think there were 100% more players. And I mean, that's a commitment to play the league. It means that you're gonna have to be available for 2 events, for five rounds. If you're a new player, 5 rounds to today's event is pretty hard. So yeah, it's crazy.
Do you know like how is there like, because that's probably going to require travel and potentially time off work leave, that sort of thing. Is that a pretty big hindrance to people, or is it like common in, I guess, French working culture that people will often be able to get the time off? Just because that strikes me as a problem if you're like committing to this thing of, I suppose you probably know the dates well in advance as well.
Yeah, we have the date at least 2 or 3 months in advance, and teams are encouraged to have at least 4 or 5 additional players. For example, in our 6-man team, we have a 40-man team, overall team.
The 14, sorry, not 14.
14, yeah.
No, 14, not 14.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah. We're not 2 buses going through that.
Yeah, that's all.
The couple of mercenaries in that 40-man team, just in case. Oh, too good. So what's it like seeing like in France overall? Like, is it more, do you know if it's really focused on that competitive environment, or do you see like a lot of more casual play and like hobby side of things there, or is it very much focused on that competitive atmosphere, or it's a bit of everything?
So I'm not experienced enough to give you a definitive answer, but I'm pretty sure France would lean off, like, I don't want to sound, but it used to be, I think, one of the most casual, I mean, at least hobby focused. We're definitely as hobby focused as Spanish people. A lot of emphasis on painting. And I think the competitive side, there used to be really a huge rift between competitive play and casual play. Like people used to hate, like that's what I gather from what I heard because I wasn't playing, but they really didn't like to enjoy competitive tournaments. They had a very bad rep, and this completely changed since intention play. I think the scene has really evolved a lot since intention play, because French people can be a bit complicated. So intention plays clears up a lot of problems. And there was a second event, I think it's what I gather from speaking with other refs that's a change, is I think Olivier Weiss. So Olivier Weiss, you don't know him, but
he came second at the War Master, right? With the Salamanders?
Exactly. You know him as Salamander Guy.
Well, that's like what he's most recently known for, I believe. But yeah, I don't know. You continue. Tell the story.
Yeah. He's now, you can now know him as a triple Hecaton Fortress in GTL, a Greater Turian League. But he played a very, he was extremely fair play at the WTC and allowed himself to lose a game by giving his the semi-final to the War Master, by giving his clock to his adversary, and advising his adversary on how to play to beat him, because he didn't care about he cared about the team event, not the single. And it was kind of streamed live, and this had a huge impact on the French community. Because let's be honest, he kind of became a role model for many players aspiring as maybe more veteran player. And people are now citing this as an example. Like I refed a very let's say newish player event, like a 3 days RTT. It was my first ref as a main ref.
I assume 3-round RTT 1 day,
Yeah.
not 3 day.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New event 3 day.
Super major RTT. And whenever I had to explain a decision, I could always fall back on and saying, "Oh, you remember when Per Castor, Olivier did that? So that's how we're gonna play it. You have to be super fair play about this because it unlocks a lot of situation." So
Yeah, it sounds. You might not be aware if you're recently new to the scene, but there was a is it Pro Table or something, a US tournament scene where they had a massive cash prize. It was like fairly early on, and there was a fairly iconic thing where I think it was Nick Nanavati played against, might have been Siegler, and
Siegler, yeah.
there was like someone was like getting shot in Overwatch by a tower commander or something like that, and they pointed out you can roll an extra die for damage because you're within half range for the thing, and that was enough to like kill whatever was charging and flip the game. And like that was for a big cash prize. It sounds like a very similar moment. The Olivier's
exactly.
one, yeah.
Because
are you Henri?
No, the only other aspect is that basically we have a French YouTube community, and as you know, YouTube is extremely important in federating a community. And we have a French YouTuber. If you went to WTC, you met him because he was the only streamer there.
Yeah.
French Wargaming Studio. And although they're focusing on every event and they're also doing a fantastic coverage of the French team, French selection, some demonstration match, how do you call it? Battle reports.
Show match? Oh, yeah,
battle reports with top players. It's still a team that is a YouTube channel that's relatively focused on semi-casual. It's not like a super hardcore competitive environment. Like when, for example, a pro player, like a top player is invited, he will recap every rule of his faction and that kind of things. So yeah, it's
and I can attest that that at least to some extent carries down through the rest of the scene, because when we had our game, I go, yeah, so roughly what do these things do? And you're like, no, I want to explain fully to make sure you're not surprised. And then I go and lock Assassinate, and you're like, are you sure? Because it's like 8 GSC characters. Yeah, let's go take Assassinate, even though I know they need to sit at the back. So yeah, long-winded way of saying that. Yeah, that carries on the fair play and wanting to make sure opponents are well informed has gone through the scene.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, do French War Games Studio? So obviously they stream the WTC this year. They're the only ones to stream it. Maybe they'll stream it next year, hopefully. But they produce content, as you said, like that. Like, how vital is that role in the wider French community? Like, they do very good content. It's like very well published and produced. So, like, what role is that? Great to have that sort of YouTube. Is it great just to get some battle reports in French? Because obviously most content is sort of in English and like sort of on that Western side. And is it good just to promote those like sort of French players? Is that like what role it plays? And obviously good to see some people potentially making a living off GW in French.
So is this YouTube channel making French scene more competitive? I don't think so. Is it making maybe bits, but it introduced people to competitive play. Let's say that. But is it crucial to the scene? Yes, it's fantastic. I mean, it's super important. The scene would not be the same without Julien and French Wargaming Studio. There is no way, because he supports the French team. He has quite a strong personality and is outgoing, and so he promotes the French team. You have to understand that the French team raised between 15 and 22,000 euros for the WTC. And we only have a small travel through French Wargaming Studio. So everything was paid for. So it was a game changer. In Paris, currently, the only available proper play space to play Warhammer and to do tournament is called the French Wargaming Cafe. which is partly owned by French Warhammer Studio. I mean, where he streams for and where he has a streaming equipment available. So no, I think it's very different from other YouTube channel from other country where they will more focus, like I'm thinking of Stat Check or which are super hardcore focus, Art of War to a lesser extent, which are hardcore focused on competitive side. Here they will of course do feedback on competition and blah blah, but there will also be some painting tournaments, some painting tutorials, some narrative playstyle. So yeah.
Would the channel be a bit like a gateway between people just playing at home or getting into the hobby and casual stuff, a gateway between that and like joining the tier 3 league? Is it a good sort of gateway to encourage them? Yeah. That's awesome. Like that's because when people are getting into things, right, they're going to be looking around online and do that sort of thing, and they go, oh, this is the thing. Yeah, okay. And if they have played for a bit, they might want to try it out.
And also recruiting referees, because they do once a year a referee talk where the referee explain how it works, what they want to do, and that's super helpful.
Did that get you involved? Is that how you started? Or
I think so. I think I just went completely crazy when WTC started, like really insane. I wasn't that much into competitive play, and then I looked at every single list from every team and started doing spreadsheets and trying to understand how they worked, because I had 5 weeks holidays and nothing else to do except painting 2,000 points of GSC. But and so I really, that's when I went completely down the rabbit hole, but probably thanks to Julien and French Wargaming Studio.
Yeah. And you say, we talked a bit before this, that the French Wargaming Studio, it sounds like a place like after work, you can casually go there, have a couple of beers or some alcoholic beverages or just beverages of your choice and get some games in, like nice and easily. Is that true? Like you just rent a table and play some games?
Basically, you ideally you book it beforehand, but most of the day is fine. And you go there, you pay 10 euros each player for a table, so 20 euros for 2 players. But most of the people that go there often have a subscription, so 40 euros, which is very decent. 30 euros per month, which includes some other perks, so it's super cheap. And you can play as many games as you want, and the scenery is like super beautiful WTC scenery, and you can eat there and get food delivered at your table, which is very comfortable. And that's also where we do most of the Parisian tournament now. So or you can just go there to have beers.
Fantastic.
How many players can you fit in there? Sorry, just quickly.
You can fit 21 table maybe, but that's pushing it to the limit.
Yeah.
So it would
be
like
18 or something to be comfortable.
Yeah, 18, 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a small GT. They're like 36 players. That's more than a GT size.
Oh no, they do. Yeah, they do. Actually, they have more because we did already a 40-player GT. So yeah.
20 players,
yeah.
So you talked about also previously, obviously you talked about the team championships for a lot there, but you also have a bunch of singles events. Like how common are those singles events? Is it like generally like one a month throughout France, or what about these singles events like not as common?
They're not as common because the pros and cons of our system is that the pros is all the thing I told you about. The con is that it requires a lot of time and energy to organize all those small team events, which means that the venues are very often booked. And the orgs are taken by organizing. So there is definitely a con to the system. It means that top player gets less top reps, top player reps. That's for sure. But to answer your question, there is like, I think there is so the Med Cup that takes place in south of France that has 1 or 2 team events and 2 singles events, so 4 times a year. There is this UKTC event, which will take place around Paris. Maybe 1 or 2 more GTs and 2 GTs at this cafe every year at least. So yeah,
about a dozen
at least. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. We have a question in the chat. So with your judge calls, like how when you're being a judge and a referee, are you allowed to do active judging? So in the sense, like if you see something being played wrong, someone's like, I have this here happen here, and they've got it wrong. Are you allowed to interrupt and stuff like that? Is that encouraged, or are you only to come to tables and make calls if they're on request?
No, you have to intervene if you see anything wrong. And if a coach sees something wrong, for example, he has to call a ref, and the ref will intervene. But we're really into active judging. If we see something that has been done wrong, we try to roll back as much as we can. For example, as the last so there was a French championship finals a couple of weeks ago where I was a ref, Padawan ref. So for example, a rhino got destroyed. Some models unloaded, and the guy tried to do a heroic intervention at the next turn, and because it's something that you can very easily forget, and that's not allowed.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's a kind of thing. But usually at this level, it's not malicious. It's just that there's so many rules that.
Oh, there's never a perfect game of 40k, so you got to catch up some things everywhere along the way. But yeah. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. So what's the rest of your calendar looking like, Henri? Like, have you got any events lined up, or have you got like stuff planned? What's the plan for the rest of the year or leading into next year?
So basically, the big focus for me is my league pod that will take place on the 7th of January. So up till then, I had events every weekend up till now, which were either reffing events or team training events. And so next weekend is going to be till the end. I will only have one smaller TT around the 17th of December, and then on the 7th of December, 7th of January, my pod. So that will be the big milestone, and then a couple of GTs leading up to WTC next year, where I will be most likely playing as a War Master. So singles events.
So
Fantastic.
Are you going to try go along to ref or potentially, but also go along to the War Masters because it's not far away?
I will definitely go. Yeah, I will definitely go to War Master. I mean, get ready, guys, for a huge influx of French players for the War Master. We're coming. So hordes of us coming, I think. Ref, I think I'm a bit too junior to do it. I would love to do it, but I think in my opinion, I'm a bit too junior.
Yeah, sure. And so obviously, for most important to know, so you said like the team's events are set like 3 months apart, and you have like a rules cut off like 4 weeks beforehand, and like you submit new lists and new armies, etc. So each sort of event is different in its own sense. Like obviously you have the same core team and people around it, but your lists and armies and factions and stuff are different and unique for it. Has to do your whole new pairing matrices and everything for each event. So there's obviously a lot of work going into it, and like with only I guess like 2 or so events every year, like you got to invest a lot because it make or break.
Yeah, I mean, there was only two events, but we do a lot of other team events. But yeah, those 2 events are so much of a focus. As you said, so much time invested in them. I mean, we have meta watches, pre-meta pairing matrices. I mean,
yeah. That's cool. Do you say much like tabletop simulator work or like work done in that forum, like for you guys, like as a French scene? Like, do you play a lot of TTS or is it mostly all in person?
Yeah, we play a lot of TTS, definitely. I couldn't. Yeah, we play definitely a lot of TTS. It's as everybody, it's exploded with COVID. I think we might be a little bit less prone to play TTS because we are closer to each other, so it's easier to play in-person games. But I mean, there are 2 or 3 TTS French tournaments going as I'm speaking. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff going on.
I'm sure you could find some games with people in Luxembourg who are. It's like, I can't be bothered traveling. Just we'll make it to the computer and play someone anywhere, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, even Paris sometime, like to travel from one part plus Paris, it can be an hour and 15 minutes. So people would prefer TTS.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I bet. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it could take more than an hour to cross the city at the wrong time. But yeah.
Yeah. With your teams and stuff like that, when you have your certain players, are you sort of encouraged to like sort of hyper focus on like one or two armies within each team and like in the scene, or like do you get like those faction specialists, or do people like meta chase and are able to jump from army to army to army? Like, what's the French scene generally appetite for that sort of thing?
So that's a very interesting question. I don't have the actual answer, but
Sure.
I think I can extrapolate a little bit. I think there has been a bit of meta chasing, and especially I think this happened to many countries around the world, because in this V9 where we're actually playing, I think meta chasing is not encouraged at all, because everything is so balanced that a codex expert has so much more value than like Harley or Craft World. I mean, 6 weeks ago the debate was on, but I think now Craft World in team events is really interesting. As long as Sweeping Oak don't get nerfs. So I think a codex expert is really encouraged. I think the French team maybe at last WTC, because the meta was really young. I mean, there was very little time between Narmund and WTC submission. Might have focused on some codices rather than codex experts. It's a possibility. I'm not sure of that, but and now codex experts are definitely encouraged for sure.
I would say, given that like the way your selection process works, that it would probably encourage people to be codex experts. But actually, when does your team get selected compared to when WTC is? I can't remember if that's already been covered. I'm sorry.
No, we didn't cover it. Actually, that's interesting, because the match that we'll take up for this league will be for the 2024 WTC. So basically, the playoff just took place. Or the playoff of last year just took place 2 weeks ago. So the captain was selected.
Yeah, because you were riffing at it, right? Like 2 weeks ago, there was a big event. We should probably mention that, right? That would be.
Yeah, so there's the big four. So as Henri mentioned, so within League One, at the very end, like the top 4 teams, like all one from each area. Is that correct? Sorry,
no,
the top 4 teams.
Yeah, for League One is all the best.
How many teams are in League One? Just to go over that again.
6.
Okay. Right. So the top 4 of the top 6 playoff, and so that was a big tournament that occurred 2 weeks ago, and that was to select the 2023 captain.
Exactly.
Ultimately, yeah. And so will they have chosen the team by now?
So no, I don't think so. I think they still have time, especially I think it's, in my opinion, I mean, there is still, I think it won't be chosen in a month. We have a whole new rule pack, which is going to impact a lot the meta. I mean, we have no idea how it's going to evolve. I think they're going to wait a little bit, but the top 20 will be selected. Top 16 will be selected soon, because as we said earlier, Olivier, so Salamander guy, won the championship, so he will be our new captain. And so he will select all the 8 players, including plus the coaches and some how do you call it, additional players,
assistants. Assistants.
Or reserve players, or like
reserve players. Reserve players. But no, it's and the event in itself, the Big Four, so the playoffs, is a bit different from everything else, because all the mercenaries rules, everything is dropped. It's all about the players. No more rules. You take the gloves off. Everything's allowed, of course, but it's mostly the most. It's the most. How do you say it? Fair high level, of course, but it's a very polite playing, fair play. Everybody is extremely fair play. There was not. So I was reffing the event. There was not a single occurrence of tension. So really peaceful, and almost no rule questions. The only moment where we call is for very specific WTC convention obscure ruling.
Or I assume for some things like, does this have line of sight to here? That's sort of just clarifying. Yep.
Also, we use it's a bit technical, but we use the WTC rules that if you do a charge through a wall and your model base doesn't fit, you have to call a ref. You're not allowed to do it by yourself. You have to have a ref
Okay.
at your table, which avoids any problem.
Yeah, that seems like broadly just a pretty good idea, given that you've got the good structured ref culture in the country.
Yeah, I mean, 5 refs for 4 teams of 8 is okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So will you see yourself and maybe any other French players that travel maybe internationally? So obviously you have your UKTC event coming to Paris next year from the sounds of things. But will you guys travel across? Like obviously there's some events in Germany. There's obviously the recent Super Major that happened in the Netherlands at the time of this recording last weekend. Will you guys, the French scene, generally travel across to those things? We had Alex Saka obviously travel over to the LGT and win that. But is it pretty common to travel to those like nearby countries or not really?
I would say we're less prone to travel than other countries as I see it. I think there is no rule of thumb. It really depends on the occasion. For example, there were 3 French players at the last LVO, but that's also because there was COVID. Now I'm going to stand like this in order to match the camera. So it's also because there was COVID, so they decided to travel there. But no, it's really, I think there were at LGT there were quite some French players. I met a couple afterwards, so at least 3 or 4 French players there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sweet. And maybe want to see some at Alpine Cup. I know that's coming up soon in February, I'm sure.
So Alpine Cup will be a bit more complicated because we have a French, so I didn't talk about this, but we have a French event that takes place every year, which is organized partly between our federation and French Wargame Studio. So our YouTube channel, the YouTube channel of French viewer. And it's an event that's actually explained a lot what I've been talking about most casual play. It's a 1,000-player event that takes place over 2 days. But most of it's 2v2 on 1,000 points.
So like each 1,000 points, and you've got 4 players per table?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's very different from what we've been from competitive and blah blah. But that's the most played events. That's the most populous events of France every year.
Yeah.
And it's taking place around Alpine Cup. So I think a lot of players will be there. And this year, good for more competitive players, there will be a singles event with 100 players, 100 spots. And I know they've been talking about inviting foreign players. I've heard rumors about overseas players, but I don't know if it will manage to be confirmed. But
we'll have to wait and see. Oh, fantastic! Towse, did you have any other questions for Henri?
I don't think so. Like that was really cool. Like it was a good chat. Is it worth going into any more? Just like the tournament 2 weeks ago. Do you want to? Are there any points on that are worth touching on? You've sort of alluded to Olivier and his triple hackathon. Are there any things? I know there's another list that could be worth highlighting. At least, do you want to quickly touch on just some of the high points of the Big Four tournament from 2 weeks ago?
So I think the list you're talking about is the orc list.
That might be what I'm alluding to. Yeah.
No, it was great. So the winning team, the team of Olivier, they decided to field an orc, which is very unusual. And in fact, orc is very interesting in the meta. I think an 8-man team at least, is because it's a very stable codex in terms of scoring secondaries. It's also not that bad in terms of scoring primaries because it sticks relatively okay to the table. And I think the meta currently is saturation, and demon are a problem in the meta. And although they have poor leadership, orcs have poor leadership, etc., they have fantastic melee saturation, which demon doesn't like at all. So it's a very strong tool in the pairing. And and it's a stable codex. I mean, you score 40 without doing anything, and so 37 without doing nearly anything. So it's an interesting list. I think the player was. I haven't talked with him. I think it was Morgor piloting it. He was really geared on to taking down demons. So that was very interesting. There were 2 Votan lists, one usual, one which we talk about the triple hackathon, which was geared into taking down Tau 20-0 or 19-1.
Ooh.
And
so when you say normal, you mean sort of your mere berserks, bikes, 5 squads of those 2, the minimum troops, double fortress?
Double Sagittor, 1 or 2 fortress, some bikes.
Okay. Sure.
Carl and
Yeah.
classic stuff.
Votan good stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Super.
Oh, Sam, you still there? Sam may have frozen, so I'm going to keep going for a bit. But yeah, like I guess the orcs and demon thing makes a bit of sense, right? Because it used to be the thing orcs hated was a 2-up save, and so if they've got limited AP and demon saves can't be modified, that's just, I mean, yeah, that makes sense among other things. So yeah, that's cool. Was there anything else worth highlighting, or those sort of the big points of
No, I think that's with. I mean, Sam, you were trying to say something before?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna say sorry that Orcs list was a Death Skulls list, so all the obsec, all the MSU nonsense, by the way. So that's why it scored so well, and we get the good bits and all the other various secondaries, as you said, score 40 very, very easily. But yeah, before we head out, Henri, is there any final shouts, anything you want to plug on the way out for our beloved listeners?
No, that's all. Just shout out to my team, Stardust Crusader, and really proud of them. They did really well last event. We won a training event against some relatively diverse team, but there were 2 French WTC selection player. We managed to score relatively decently against one of them. So no, it was so shout out to them. And
you guys should stand proud after that achievement.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, Henri. It's great to learn about France and like what goes in. It's really exciting. So, and to close us out, Marisol is French. Obviously, we heard maybe at the very end of the WTC. How would you rate it on a scale of 0 to 10? Was it pretty good, well delivered, or not very good?
I will make him honor and just stay quiet and not I will respect him.
Awesome.
A for trying.
A for trying, indeed. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a good one and take care.
Take care. Bye. Ciao, guys.
Wow.